Welcome everyone. My name is Paul Offerman. It is my pleasure to host today's session focused on services resource planning. I'm joined by Adam Mayo, one of our vertical market experts who will be responsible for the product demonstration that we'll cut to shortly. It was announced at the outset, but we really do want to make this as interactive as possible, so please do use the WebEx feature to submit questions, and we'll be happy to get to those at the end of the session today. As far as the agenda, so we're going to begin with a brief introduction to services resource planning. We're going to move to the live product demonstration, and then as stated, we're going to try to cover off on as many of the questions that come out during the session as we can. To start, for those of you who are unfamiliar with NetSuite, NetSuite is far and away the undisputed cloud leader in ERP and SRP, which is services resource planning. We have 2,400 employees distributed globally, and we did about $414 million of revenue last year, both numbers kind of rapidly expanding. We're used by more than 20,000 organizations across 100 countries, and we are far and away the fastest growing of the top 10 financial management system providers worldwide. On the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see a number of the customers that are already using the solution that we're going to talk through today. What you'll see not only are these great brands, but these cover a variety of kind of micro verticals, from software to consulting to research to IT services. Really the common theme here are organizations with strong kind of people and project-based orientations. And what is SRP? So this is a term coined by NetSuite, Services Resource Planning, and really it's an adaptation of the 25-year-old ERP term. But the difference is really important. The emphasis here, the focus is on services and the unique requirements of running services organizations. The solution that we're going to talk through today is really purpose-built for running a services organization from beginning to end. And what does that mean to us? What that means is starting off with really an integrated suite. You know, a single cloud-based suite sitting on a single database that supports all of the requirements of a services organization from bid to bill. So looking at this graphic here, starting with client management. So really giving you a whole view of the client, understanding in one place your past dealings with that organization, contacts, prior communications, really the whole financial picture of that relationship. And then moving on to project management. So it starts with project planning, often in a pre-sale stage, project tracking, project accounting. Next, resource management, so really supporting your workflows around resource allocation and skills tracking and utilization reporting. Moving on to time and expense capture, one of the core aspects of any services company. Efficiently and accurately tracking time and expense, and then relaying those entries through an approval process. Mobile, right? So the cloud is inherently mobile, and we take advantage of that by really providing a variety of mobile options for inputting data, as well as viewing information out of the system. Product sales. So many organizations today are not pure services organizations at all, but in varying degrees are also out there selling product. We absolutely support that and kind of bring the service delivery as well as the product sale element together in one place. Billing, and everyone on the phone has an awareness of how complicated services billing can be. We have a very flexible framework for supporting whatever contractual arrangements you have with your own customers, allowing you to accurately get chargeable items on invoices and out to your customers efficiently. And financials, right? At the simplest level, that can just be a simple GL, AR, AP, but for many of our global customers, it gets into financial consolidation across entities, across countries, across currencies, something that we support extremely well in the solution. And then, of course, analytics. Being able to get real-time information out of the system in a way that allows you to help run your business, whether that's a report, an alert, or one of the great graphical dashboards that Adam is going to show you later on today. So NetSuite's powering thousands of professional services organizations really across the world. And some of those are traditional kind of freestanding services organizations like an advertising firm, or a law firm or a management consultancy. But many of those services organizations are actually embedded services organizations that you'll find in a hardware company or a software company. NetSuite really handles both of those situations very well, and that's something we hope to showcase in just a few minutes. I'm going to leave you with a quote from Mike Foss, one of our favorite analysts over at IDC, who's covered this space for quite some time. And what Mike says is, in order to drive profit and growth, project and product-based businesses have a clear need for visibility into the services, product, and financial data that has traditionally been siloed across their organizations. And for me, that's where you find some of the real value that NetSuite provides. So in addition to providing end-to-end process automation, we're really providing a truly holistic view of your business and of your customers. Really eliminating these silos that Mike's talking about here. Okay. And with that brief introduction, I would like to pass control over to Adam to lead us through a live product demonstration today.
Great, thanks, Paul. And welcome, everyone. My name is Adam Mayo. I'm a vertical market expert within the services space at NetSuite, and I'm going to take you through the NetSuite SRP solution. Bear with me while I share out my screen. So you may have received a little flicker, but now you should be seeing our NetSuite dashboard, and we're going to jump into the application. A couple of things that we always like to point out when demoing the NetSuite product is being a SaaS-based solution. We're browser and operating system agnostic, so as long as I have an internet connection, I'm able to access the system. It's also role-based, so you'll notice up in the top right that I'm logged in as Mark Collins today, the Professional Services Director, that has pretty full access to the system. And that's controlling some of the menus that I see, which are very much organized for a professional services person. Some of our CRM information, our PSA, Professional Services Automation, where we're managing projects and resources, to some of the more day-to-day types of transactions, entering timesheets, expense reports, and how those move over into financials. But that role could be different depending on who's logging in. So if I were to log in as more of a consultant, I may just have mainly access to my timesheets, my expense reports, perhaps the projects that I'm working on, but nothing else. Whereas if I were to log in as more of a finance person, I'm going to have access to the GL transactions and reporting and things of that nature. So you'll see some of those variety of roles to the presentation today, but just know that you're able to very much tailor it to each of those individual roles. And really, it's achieving a couple of things. One, we're not overwhelming someone with options that they wouldn't use or need. And with that, it helps promote user adoption. People are able to get used to the system because they can find what they need quite easily. From a general navigation standpoint, just a couple of things that we always like to point out. Up in the top right, you'll find your global search, and this is something that people are using on a daily basis to find records or information to the system. So simply, if I were looking for Ultima, who's a client within our data set here, I'm finding opportunities and events and contacts that are tied to Ultima within here. If I wanted to filter that down even further, and let's say I want to look at just my client records within here, I can put in an abbreviation, type in Ultima, and it filtered it down on just the client record. So again, it makes it quite easy to limit what information you're looking for typing in a number, a transaction number, in this case a project name, identifying those, and then being able to select that right from the list as you can see here. In addition to using the global search, over on the left-hand side, we have our recent records, so I can always go back to that project I was just looking at, or that invoice I had open. So it's going to have that history there that you can always go back from a navigation standpoint, as well as a listing of shortcuts. And again, these are, of course, personal to each person that logs in. They can have their own shortcuts of areas that they're frequenting the most so that we can, again, access those at any point in time. And then the main portion of the screen that you're seeing is the dashboard. And that's comprised of several different windows, and you're seeing some of those notification tiles up on the top. We refer to these as portlets. And again, it's configurable for each and every user. So as a professional services director, I have some notifications right up on the top as far as billable charges for projects or hours that I need to go in and approve. As I scroll down a little bit further, looking at things like time by employee from more of a utilization standpoint, some key performance indicators, looking at our billings forecast or billable hours. Really critical for a services company is understanding how many billable hours we have, and we're hoping that those do go up and that we're able to invoice those in a timely manner. Just from a configuration standpoint, you'll notice up on the top right, I have the ability to personalize my dashboard, so I can always go in and add additional content within here. And this is all just standard functionality as far as adding things like a KPI meter or another report, graph, chart, reminders of things I need to follow up within the system. And so if I wanted to add a KPI meter, I just click on it, It added it to the top left here. It's all drag and drop. I could rearrange this on my dashboard if I so chose. I can move it back here. I can also choose what I want to view within that meter. So in this case, again, those metrics that we're reporting on, perhaps I want to see this on income as opposed to our billings forecast or on expenses. I can go in and easily toggle those between the different values. From a reporting standpoint, one of the things that is very nice working off of the dashboard is you see the charts and graphs and the ability to look at those details, but also being able to consolidate information. So I mentioned the key performance indicators that we're seeing here. And so from here I'm able to look at metrics, sales and forecasts and pipeline, which are more traditionally from a CRM, sales and marketing perspective. Our income, expenses, receivables, which are more financial driven. Profit, billing forecast, billable hours, which are more project services driven. So traditionally we might have to run separate reports. Maybe we have even disconnected systems that we're tracking that information. Here, having everything in one spot, our CRM, our professional services, project management, and our financials, we're able to consolidate that and then drill into the details to look at more of the information at any point in time. What I want to do now is just tell a quick little story as far as how we see firms that are managing off of the dashboard, and then we'll get into some more of the core areas, attributes of the solution. But one thing you may have noticed as I've been talking in introducing the product is there's a blinking tile up on the top that says I have $9,600 worth of on-hold charges. And so from here I can go in and click onto that tile to take action on it. Oftentimes, again, we do not, as a services company, want to have items that are on hold. The longer it takes to potentially bill a client, the more difficult it's going to be to actually go in and receive payment on that. So right from that alert notification, I drilled into the project at hand. It brings me into our project dashboard. And here you can see a series of again, those portlets, those windows, but it's specific to the project I have selected. So again, it has its own key performance indicators up on the top. Percent complete, how much the cost of the project has been incurred so far, what we've recognized from a billing standpoint. Having quick links over on the left-hand side to manage resources or create a project task. You're seeing a great visual or Gantt chart within here and being able to visually see where we are, being able to compare against the baseline to see where we may be delayed or off of our original plan that we had within here, being able to have those types of details right at our fingertips, as well as looking at things like a project P&L to understand from a labor or expense or even third-party suppliers what's impacting our project from both a revenue and a cost standpoint, ultimately driving profitability and the margin. From here, if I wanted to look at more of the actual project details, I can click right into it. So this brings me to the dashboard. I can say, okay, looks like we're perhaps still on track as far as conducting the work. We're at 90% complete. What seems to be the problem? And here I can notice that I have a comment. The project and charges are on hold. Client has outstanding invoice payments. We're going to come back and revisit some of the overall project capabilities, but you're seeing the schedule and things like that. But one of the nice things, again, of having a consolidated system is that I'll have related information about the project, again, right at my fingertips. So here I can go in and see, are there any messages or notes that people have put in here? And I can see, yeah, there is one. There was an invoice notification. And as I kind of scroll through here and look at the last correspondence, it looks like the client had requested to have receipts get attached to their invoices, and so they were withholding payment. Looks like we sent out that documentation, so we should be able to go ahead and start moving on with the billing of the project and hopefully get it back on track. From here, again, as a professional services director, and depending on my access, I can see I have these $9,600 worth of held billing charges. I can click on it right from the project and view those details and see, here's the labor value of those transactions. And at this point, I'm going to say, let's get these back to ready. I don't want to have this sitting out there anymore, so that we can now let finance know that they need to go in and create an invoice. So that easy. From the dashboard, I was notified of a potential problem. I drilled into the project, viewed some of those details, went in, made a modification to our billing charges, and then from here I can close out those screens and go back to my dashboard, and you'll notice immediately my tile stopped blinking. We have 0 charges on hold. we're good to go on with the rest of our processes or functions within the tool. Now that I'm back on the dashboard, one other thing I just wanted to point out before we get into some of the other core components within the application is just, again, from a little taste of some of the reporting. So I mentioned before we have our key performance indicators, and you can see here I have the ability to go in and drill into any of these values. So for instance, if I wanted to look at our income in more detail, I click on it, and it brings me into our income statement, which was the underlying report that made up that value. And from here, it's an interactive report. I can manipulate it right on the fly as the end user. You might notice that on the bottom I have the ability to access options, to add a chart. I can, of course, print any of these reports, email them, schedule. So if I wanted to email this on a daily basis and a weekly basis, we can schedule the tool to do so, as well as the ability to export this information into things like Word, Excel, PDF, or CSV format for further manipulation outside of the tool. But right on the report itself, I can go in and start adding different column breakouts. So let's say I wanted to see this broken out by the accounting period. I'm going to say we want to look at this quarter as an example and refresh the report. So now I'm going to have a column up in the top for each of the accounting periods of Q2 2014. And it made that breakout for me automatically. Perhaps I want to go in and say, well, let's look at this broken out by what we refer to as class. And again, we'll look at it for this current accounting period here. And so instead of looking at it by accounting period or month, we now have a different breakout up on the top, looking at our consulting group versus data migration versus custom development, operations, etc. Of course, this is all configurable and something that you would tailor as you implement the system, but having that type of breakout is critical so that we're able to kind of see where revenue streams are coming from, that sort of thing. From here, with any of the reports, it's all drill down. So you'll notice here I have some data migration, professional services revenue. I might click into that to get more of the details. It looks like we had 2 invoices to a client called Avery Systems. And from here, I might click right on the amount and look at the transaction if I wanted to look at more of those details. So 2 clicks off of the income statement, I'm in the source transaction, in this case the invoice, that was contributing to our revenue for our data migration team. And again, I can always navigate back to the home dashboard screen by clicking on the home option up in the top. Okay. So what I want to do now is talk a little bit about our Client 360, and then we're going to walk through essentially the project lifecycle, so you get an idea of kind of all the moving parts and if we're selling products versus services and how that may flow within the system. Before we do that, I'm going to pull up that customer again, Ultima, and just talk a little bit about our again, what we refer to as Client 360. And again, this just talks more about, again, the power of having multiple systems in one consolidated solution, which in this case is NetSuite. So again, having our CRM and sales and marketing, our project management, our financials all in one tool. So here we have our client record for Ultima. It's going to have the same type of information I'm sure you'd expect as any tool as far as information that you'd be tracking, address, contacts within here. One thing to point out, you do have the ability to add your own custom fields. You can create your own custom tabs within these records and completely rearrange what the forms look like. So as a professional services director looking at the client record, it might be entirely different than someone on the sales team, from someone on the finance team. So we're able to, again, tailor those views so that they're getting what they need right when they pull up that record. Down at the bottom, you'll see that we have several sub-tabs as far as some of the information that we're tracking. So again, contacts, more activities, and whether it's CRM related as far as contacts and events and things like that that we're reaching out to our customer, or even more around things like project issues, or from a finance perspective, being able to notify people when invoices are overdue and being able to send email communications out of the tool. So that's where these activities and messages and things like that come into play. It's not just CRM related. It's going to be applied throughout the different functions within our business. From a more of a sales perspective, being able to set up opportunities, and oftentimes within the services world, we're going to have repeat work. We're going to have perhaps multiple projects and different types of things that we're doing for a client, and being able to look at that history and see what have we done for them before, what did we quote them, did we close it, is it still open? We're in turn hoping that these opportunities do turn into actual projects where we're going to be tracking against those, estimating planned hours, percent complete as work is accomplished, billing against those projects. And here you can see a nice view for Ultima of projects that may be closed or ongoing and the percent complete of each of those. And again, one thing you'll notice is that we have hyperlinks throughout the system. So the ability to go in and pull up that project or access that project dashboard, we're able to do that, again, right at our fingertips. And then just kind of wrapping up some of the other areas here from a financial perspective, being able to see the transactions that we have for that client, invoices, orders, estimates that we've quoted out to them, being able to see what types of items or services we provided to them in the past and what that looked like, being able to attach documents, SOWs, license agreements, being able to have that central repository of that information so that, again, if I'm bringing colleagues onto the project or working with a client, they have that information that we've already kind of gathered within the tool. Within the tool. So that's a little bit, again, of that Client 360, that view within here. What I want to do now is kind of walk through a full cycle, starting with the lead and how we go in and scope it, create the project, and perhaps even sell some products that would coincide with that. So what I'm going to do is navigate over into our sales rep. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the role is going to control your level of access, how things are organized. You can see as the sales rep, it's a bit more of a tactical type of view, tactical dashboard. My menus up in the top are all CRM related, leads and opportunities and forecast. If I'm looking at my key performance indicators, it's all specific to me. It's my leads, my quota, my sales, with the ability to drill into those. As far as capturing new leads into the system, I certainly can go in and create a new lead right off of here and walk through the screens to do so. If you're working with external lists, we have full import capabilities, so if you wanted to import lists and route those accordingly to reps, we can do so as well. We also have our online lead form, and this really is a nice feature to allow you to publish out on your Contact Us page a form similar to what you're seeing here, controlling what fields you may want to have that end contact fill out. And as soon as they go in and complete it and click Submit, that's now going to get routed to the appropriate rep within the company, create the record in NetSuite so that we're able to view that information and take action on it. So here I have this one for Jane, who works for a company called Aperture Health. I'm going to click Submit, and that's going to go in, again, create the lead record for us in NetSuite, assign it to the appropriate sales rep based off of lead routing type rules that you can configure within the system, perhaps territory, that sort of thing. So let me close this tab here and go back over into my sales rep and drill into my new leads. And so this brings me into a report where I can go in and see any of the new leads that have been entered into the system. And here's that one for Aperture Health that we just viewed. So this is the one that I had keyed in. I'll click into it, and it brings me into that record. So again, as a sales rep now, I can go in and start adding additional contacts. Jane, who filled out the contact form, the system was smart enough to make her a contact associated to the company within here. It also had a workflow set up to send off an email message automatically to the contact. So notice here, if I were to go in and view it, using a template approach, it personalized it. It says, Dear Jane, blah, 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 signed off by the sales rep. So we're able to go in and have those types of things default in based off of a workflow engine that you can configure all through the front end to start automating some of those types of communications, but as well as notifying other people within the company of things that they need to follow up on, that sort of thing. So from here, I'm going to go in and create a brand new opportunity for Aperture Health. So we'll go in as the sales rep. Brings me to the opportunity form here. Again, traditional information that you may expect out of CRM tools. Up on the top, I can go in and give this a title. So let's say that we're working with them and we're going to be doing a BI integration type project within here. Down below, I have a forecasting area where I can start building out different stages or statuses, and these will be tied to probabilities, which will ultimately help from a pipeline reporting standpoint. So as I start to build and add items to this overall opportunity, and then as I move it through the different life cycle of the opportunity, it's going to weight it appropriately. And again, this is all configurable, things that you'd be defining as part of the setup of the system. So in this case, I'm going to go in and let's say that we're an IT type of services company where we might be reselling some products, but we're also going to be setting up a project to do this integration work on behalf of our client. So below, I'm going to go in and from my product list, go in and select a few items. I have the ability to pull it right from the list here. I can also pull up a little dialog box and add multiple items from here and say, we're going to be selling them some database server software that they're going to need within here, and they're also going to need a new Blade server as part of that. So I'll build in the quantities of one for each of those, and that gets added to my opportunity. So I now have a projected total of $7,500. Now from here, I might say, as the sales rep, I'm not really sure what level of effort it's going to take. This is going to be a full project. They're going to do the install, but they're also going to be doing a full integration project for this particular prospect. So from here, I'm going to go and switch my status to need scoping. I need to actually have someone from our professional services team go in and scope out the delivery of the project work. You might have tabs like the scoping tab that you're seeing here, where as a sales rep I can pass along some of that information. So maybe they're looking to get started next week. Some key requirements here. This is fast moving. Within here, we'll need to order software. So we're going to have to go in and put in some of those types of notes, that sort of thing. From here, as a sales rep, my work is done. I'm going to save it. And that's going to now get routed over to our project manager who needs to go in and start doing some of that detailed scoping. So let's switch gears. I'm going to now navigate over into our project manager role. And again, one thing just to point out, not to sound like a broken record, but you'll notice that the tabs, the view, the dashboard is all specific to now more of a project management function. Up on the top here, I do have access to some of the CRM menus, but I have my full professional services automation where we're going to be doing project management, resource management, accessing time and expense, related project financials that would be applicable, that sort of thing. So from here, as the project manager, I'm going to have a notification that there's opportunities to be scoped. And so when I drill into that, it brings me into a little list view where I can see that. And here's the BI integration opportunity that we were just looking at. So from here, I'm going to go in and view that and look at any of the details. So here I can see, all right, well, it looks like we're going to be installing a couple of, a server, and it looks like there might be some software that's going to need to be installed on there. I'll go to my scoping tab and view any of those details. All right, they're going to be moving quick. We've got to go in and kind of scope out what the project is going to entail, what that's going to look like. And so from here, I can go in and say, all right, I need to go in and build out a project. Now, I could do that from scratch, or what we could do is go and click on our available templates. And so here we now have the ability to create project templates. And this really allows us to standardize our project creation process. You can have as many templates as you'd like. If I were to click on this quick project template here as an example, this one's going to have a very basic work breakdown structure. If I were to change my view here and say, let's look at the overall view. There's a few tasks on it. That's it. There's other attributes that we'll have stored there. Or let's say we're going to go in and do more of an integration type project. I'll click on this template, the system integration template, where we can view some of those details. And again, you're able to see this one does have a much more built out work breakdown structure, multiple phases and tasks, predecessor relationships that we're going to be identifying within here. And so I might be using this as a starting point. Now, not only are you able to copy over the schedule and then, of course, make changes in the new project, but you're able to also go in and, if I were to even just edit this template as an example, set up things, the typical budget that you'd have for this type of project. or if I jump over to the Financial tab, perhaps you want to do some of the preliminary billing setup within the templates. And we have different billing types, and we'll get more into this, but the ability to set up basic type of billing scenarios if you have kind of fixed bid, fixed price based off of a milestone or interval base, or even just general time and materials. And we also have a powerful rules engine where what we refer to as charge-based, where you might have a mixed billing use case where part of the project I'm billing out a fixed price, maybe another part of it I'm billing out time and materials. And so being able to use a charge-based mechanism with rules to identify that. And so again, we'll get more into those details. So again, the concept here is that we're able to use templates, standardize that creation process so that we have a starting point. So I've already gone in and done that. So I'm going to pull up my system integration project that we'll have available here. Let me go over and view this really quickly. Sorry, I call that a BI integration. So I'm going to go in, and I've already created the project from the template here. So you can see this is its own project. It has an assigned number to it now. I have the work breakdown structure from that template that's been copied over within here. I'm going to now go in and assign it to the appropriate client. So within here, I'll go in and say this is going to be for that Aperture Health client here. So we want to go in and assign it to them. Again, I might want to go in at this point because it's its own project and make any changes. Perhaps we're going to tweak the amount of hours that we're going to need to build out the overall project scope. Maybe I'm going to change the overall budget amounts. Or if I jump over to the Financial tab, again, I may need to go in and set up the different billing types or rules that we have associated. In this case, on this particular project, I have a time-based rule for billing by service. So we're going to have our service codes with assigned billing rates that are going to drive the billing amounts. Okay. So from here, I'm going to go in and set the client and save this. Okay, close that tab. And if I go back over to my opportunity, I now should have an associated project, the BI integration project here. And you'll notice as soon as I pick that, it added 2 line items underneath on my opportunity. So based off the hours that we had in our schedule, and again the service rates that we had defined because of the billing type, the billing structure I had set up on the project, we now have a much higher projected total based off of not only the products that we're reselling, but also the services that we're going to be providing. So again, you don't necessarily have to use the scope in order to go in and build out the opportunity, but just showing you some of the functionality that allows you to tie a lot of those types of things together. So from here, I'm still logged in as the project manager. I'm going to go in and change our status now and say that we've completed our scoping. I want to go in and notify the sales rep that they can go in and start processing the rest of this. So from here, I'm going to go in and save this opportunity. And we're going to switch back over into our sales rep to close the loop. So back in the sales rep, which we were at a little bit earlier, I have a notification of opportunities where the scoping has been completed. And I'll drill into that notification. And again, you can see there's the BI integration for Aperture Health, the $43,000. As a sales rep, I can view the details, look at it and say, okay, this is the services that we're going to end up providing here. Within here, I can see the associated project. So if I did need to go in and look at the project plan or anything like that, I certainly can go in. Maybe I want to even open that up in a new tab and view those details, look at the project plan, that sort of thing. All of that's going to be available for me as the person viewing that record potentially. So from here, this might be something that we would notify the client or get confirmation with. You might have more of a formal estimate process that you want to go in and send off an estimate of both the products and services. So right off of the opportunity, I can go in and create the estimate. And the great thing, again, about having a consolidated system is that I'm not rekeying in anything. You'll notice that the estimate brought over all the line items that I had on the opportunity. It's automatically associated to the client and to the project. It's linked back to the opportunity. So at this point, I have an estimate that's already been populated based off of all that upfront work that we've had the sales rep as well as the project manager from the delivery team populate. So from here, I can now go in and say, let's save and print that. And you can see here we have an estimate that we may send off client-facing that has the details of not only the services but also the products that we're selling within here. And again, this is a form that you'll be able to modify, change. You can change terminology, add logos, add or reduce the amount of information that's being displayed here. So those are all things that you're able to modify right in the front end. So again, depending on your process, the type of how far along you want to take that might close the loop on the services element of it, or other firms might want to have more of a final order or contract, if you will. And again, by no means do you have to follow all the steps I'm presenting today, just showing you kind of the overall life cycle of how we see a lot of firms using it, in particularly for firms that may be selling both products and services, how that might work. So in this case, I would go in and create a sales order. And again, we're just moving through the chain here. So I have my opportunity, I created an estimate, I've now created a sales order off of that estimate. And from here, again, you can see all the applicable information has been filled out. It's all specified quite nicely on here, so I'm not having to go in and rekey in any of those types of details. So from here, I'm going to go in and save. I can also print out the order if I so chose to display that within here. In this case, I'm just going to go in and save the sales order. Now, one thing just to point out as part of that process, we were reselling those different products. I'm not making the server in-house. That software that we're installing isn't ours in this particular case. So what this did is automatically created purchase orders that we're now going to be able to send off to our vendors for those third-party products. So from here, I could even view that if I had the appropriate privileges and look at the purchase order that was initiated. So here you can see I have a purchase order for the PowerEdge Blade server. It's linked directly to the client project as well, so we're going to be able to track it all the way down to that project level. But again, just helping with some of the automation depending on how far along you want to go in and process that. Okay. So that's some of the kind of sales and operations part of the order. What I want to do, and with the focus being on services resource planning for today, is go back in from more of the project manager type of day-to-day functions and some of the functionality that we have within the tool. So I'm going to navigate back over into my project manager. The project has been closed out, or I'm sorry, the order has been closed out. We're going to start working on it. We need to start thinking about assigning team members and sending people on site potentially to go in and do some of that work. So here I'm back on my project manager's dashboard. Again, I can even get a high-level view of some of the information as far as projects that we're working on that are ongoing. I can go in and filter that view down. And again, here's that Aperture Health project. We're at 0% complete. We haven't done any work on it yet. And so from here, I'm going to click on View and jump into that project. Okay. So again, we have our high-level information being displayed up on the top, what type of project it is. Again, these are all things that you're going to be able to populate. You'll be able to add your own custom fields for information that you might want to track. As I scroll down, looking at our schedule within here, and again, you can see this one has multiple levels of work breakdown structure. We have phases and tasks underneath it. I'm looking at it at a high level with the estimated work of each of those. There's different views that you have within here. I showed you the Gantt chart that we were able to access right on the dashboard as well. You can pull it up from here, as well as toggling through different views here. I might want to see all the people that are assigned out to this particular project. And so for each of the tasks, I may have multiple resources. Currently, we're staffed at a generic level. I know I need a project manager, a business analyst, a consultant. I just don't know who yet, and we're going to get more into that in just a moment. But again, you can toggle through the different views as far as how that information is going to be displayed here. I can also click directly into the tasks and view some of those details. So within here, again, looking at the specific task assignments of who we're going to need. Right now it's at a generic level because we haven't actually staffed anybody. Looking at predecessor relationships that might have been set up. Being able to budget at the task level. So within here, we can go in and budget for labor, expenses, third-party supplier type of expenses, and you can get more detailed than what you're seeing on the screen here. But you'll notice it gives me the ability to enter budget of values in. Now you can do it at either the task or at the project level, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. So again, we're able to go in and edit or view some of the task information here. So with this budget information in mind, again, you'll see that we have both the cost and billing, and I'm on an individual task. So you can go to that level of detail if necessary, but you'll also notice directly in the project we have a budget tab. And so from here, I can say take all the task budget amounts and populate and show me at my project level. So a bottoms-up approach where we're going to go in and budget for that. Now, you may not get to that level of detail from a budgeting standpoint. You may just want to say, these are what the overall budget amounts are going to be, and we want to be able to track against it. You don't need to go to the task level. You can just input the budget amounts directly on the project. And if I were to edit the project so you can see that a little bit more of that in use here, you'll notice that we just have different cells, and based off of the start and end dates of the project, we're able to specify different dollar values. You can prorate it across the different months. And again, in this particular example, I used the task budget to populate my project level. But for expenses and third-party suppliers, I'm probably not going to get to that level of detail. I'm not going to say on this task my expense budget's this, and on this task it's that. So I'd rather use the labor at the task level to populate it, but at the expense level, I'm going to just be higher up in the hierarchy and being able to specify that. So again, the nice thing is that it's flexible. You have the power to go further down if necessary or higher up to accommodate that. And again, we have both our cost budget values, which you're seeing here. If you look at labor in particular, where often we're going to be both budgeting at a cost level and tracking costs of the project, but also at our marked up billing value, which this is going to be looking at, again, rates that we have defined, whether it's by resource or by the service that we're doing, or what we refer to as a class or billing type of person. And so we're able to measure both and run reports to look at budget versus actual within the system. Okay. So that's a little bit of some of kind of the scheduling and the project budget that you'll have available from a setup standpoint when you're working with a project. What I want to move into now is talking a little bit about the resourcing. And so from here, we really support a couple different ways of looking at staffing your projects. I showed you a moment ago, right on the project plan, I have what we call task assignments. And so at a task level, I can go in and assign people to work on it. Now, we work with firms that often might have more of a centralized resource management approach, where before I, as a project manager, can staff someone, I need to go to our resource coordinator or our practice lead and say, do you have anybody available that can work on my project? That person would have to go through, say, yes, I'm going to staff this person, what we would refer to as an allocation. So they'll allocate that person to the project, and now I can go in and staff that person accordingly. And so I want to walk through a little bit of a sample flow. And again, the caveat being here, there's multiple ways to kind of do the staffing. I'm showing you kind of the full big picture of some of the different bells and whistles. You don't necessarily need to go to this level as far as how you staff people out. But you'll notice right on the resources tab, we have a listing of generic resources. I'm going to need a project manager, a consultant, a trainer, a business analyst. Those are the generics that you saw on the overall schedule. So from here, I'm going to go in and access what we refer to as our resource allocation chart. And you'll see the allocation chart is a color-coded interactive view where I can look at our resources and what projects they're currently, again, allocated to or scheduled, for lack of a better term. So within here, I can see someone like Brian look at their overall availability within here, what projects Brian might be working on, where there might be potential overages. You'll notice there's color coding up on the top. So if someone is 1 to 25%, that's shaded in yellow where they're on the bench. We want to know that. And then as we kind of progress along, we're able to see when they're fully potentially scheduled to be utilized versus where they might be over and where we might have potential scheduling conflicts at that point. I mentioned before it's interactive, so I can go in and rearrange these. If I were to go in and move these around, I can quite easily do so. And as you notice, when I do that and drop Brian's allocation to this project, it's telling me that he's now over-allocated for that particular week. So I probably don't want to go in and do that. Maybe I'm going to switch that back to where it was. Or if you needed to lengthen or shorten any of these, I can go in and do so. You're also noticing as I hover over these individual allocations, it's showing me details. I also have the ability to click directly into it and view more of that information. Okay. In addition to the color coding, you're also seeing the concept of being able to hard or soft allocate somebody. So again, we can kind of have that threshold of, well, I don't know if we're actually going to end up doing this particular project. It's only soft allocated, whereas this one is hard allocated. That's going to be confirmed. We're going to be working on it. In addition to interacting with the individual allocations that you see on here, we can go in and toggle through different views that you might have access to, so looking at different levels of resources, whether it's the consultants or project managers, that sort of thing. So in the theme of kind of the project that we're working with today, for today's demonstration, what I want to do is create a new allocation. Again, if you recall, I'm looking for project manager, a consultant, etc. In this case, let's say that we want to focus in and find a consultant to work on this. From here, I can go into our search area. And we have built out a skills inventory that you're able to populate on your resources, and also we're able to search off of availability. So from here I can start going in and saying, all right, we're going to need that resource to start next week. We'll look out for the next couple of weeks, and I'm going to need someone that's at least 50% available. I'm going to need, in this case, a consultant, so I'll narrow my search down there. And I'm going to need someone that knows BI, and perhaps, in this case, I need someone that knows SQL because we're doing kind of an integration effort here. But again, these are all things that you're going to be building out as skill profiles, skill sets that would then be assigned to your individual resources within their employee record. So from here I can go in and submit this, and it's going to do a search and find anybody in their overall availability. And I can even maximize this on the screen here so you can see it a little bit. I can resort these by any of the values here, but in this case I'll sort it by skill set score. And it looks like Abby is my best fit on paper. I can see what her cost might be. She's 100% available, which sounds good to me. What skills she had. She's an intermediate in BI, expert SQL person, sounding even better. I'll go in and pull up her resume if I wanted to see some additional information about her. I can go in, click out of that, and if Abby is going to be the resource I want to use, I'll just click on Select. I'm going to identify that project that we want to work with her on. So again, it's Aperture Health. Again, we're going to say this was going to be starting on the 16th. We'll schedule her in this case maybe just for the first week, and we'll say we're going to schedule her for 50% of her time. Click OK, and that's going to create that allocation. I can save any changes that I've made within this view, and now we'll be able to see that Abby has been allocated to work on the Aperture Health BI integration project. You can see there's now an allocation for 50% of her time for next week. And again, I can hover over that and see the details, double-click into it, make any changes if necessary. So now that Abby has been allocated to work on that project, if we're continuing again with our theme, I'm going to close out of the allocation chart, go back to our Resources tab of the project, and just refresh my screen here. And we'll see that we now have Abby listed out as an available resource to work on the project. She's now been allocated. So I can go back over to my project schedule, and if I were to look at any of the tasks where I was going to need a consultant, I can scroll through, jump over to this tab here, and now substitute Abby for that consultant role. and you notice my list is limited, I'm saying in this example, I only want to show people that have been allocated by a resource manager to work on it. Again, you don't have to get that restrictive, but just the idea if you wanted to support more of a centralized resource approach. So from here I can go in and save it, and then there might be a means where I would go in and substitute those resources across the board. Okay. So now that we've gone in and allocated Abby, we've gone in and staffed out the project, we're going to go in and switch gears and have Abby go in and actually enter some time and expenses against the project and the individual tasks that we would be scheduling her against. So again, if we're just kind of catching up to where we are here, we've gone in, we've built out the project, we've gone in and assigned our schedule, we've built out our project budget, and we've scheduled out our resources. So I'm going to scroll up to the top here and navigate over into my consultant role. And as I log in as a consultant, again, the theme of today, we're personalizing it to that individual person, to that role. But again, you'll see it's a very much reduced down role, but very clean and really organized for someone that would be working on projects. On my dashboard, I have a series of, again, quick links, some nice visuals where I can quickly access my timesheet, my expense report, allocate or look at our resource allocations, or even update my skill set, viewing any projects that I might have been staffed to and being able to see those within the view here. You can see there's the Aperture Health project that we're working on. Within the tool, looking at my utilization and as I achieve against my goal, those types of things. So from here, Abby's going to go in and fill out her timesheet. And Paul made mention of this briefly on the opening presentation. We do have an iPhone app that allows you access to the system, and very much from a CRM perspective, but also from a consulting perspective, being able to fill out my timesheet and my expense report. I can attach images. I can take a picture of a receipt, attach it to the expense report, and have that all get connected and entered into the system while I'm away from the office. So directly on my phone, I'm able to go in and make those types of edits, those updates, enter my time and expense within the system. On this particular timesheet, again, we have a nice little contained timesheet week where I'm going to go in and start working or entering time against projects. So from here, I can go in and key in the name of the client, the name of the project, and it's going to find it in the list for me. So I'll select that from here. I'll now go in and navigate or toggle over to my task list, and I'll go in and be able to pick the particular task that we want to go in and start tracking time against. That might be tied to a service, which could control my billing value, and again, we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. And then from here, I'm just going to start entering in my time. So I can plug in 8 hours, tab off of that, and as soon as I do so, there's a little comment section here. And when I pop that open, I can go in and plug in the duration again, or even use a little timer to calculate it, put in notes within here. I'll say on-site with the client. And again, here we have it very much reduced down. I'm trying to have a nice clean look and make it as easy as possible for someone to enter it in. But you have the ability to add additional attributes, values that you may want to have people capture in the timesheet. And whether it's something that shows up in this pop-up here or on the main grid or things that you can dictate. So again, if you're not seeing values that you would always fill out in your timesheet, those are things that we certainly can add. And when I say we, it's something that you as administrators of the system can do. And so from here, I can go in and continue to fill this out. So again, I'll select my BI integration. I'm just going to add a few more tasks within here just so that we have a little bit more of data to kind of work with. So I'll go in, fill out that task, and I'll do one more within here on this particular project. And we'll say that we were also working on the install, and that was for Thursday and Friday of this week. Now up on the top, you'll notice that we have the ability to save for later. So I can always go in and save this as frequently as I want, and it really does help promote end users to fill out their time more frequently. I can click on that save, come back the next day, fill it out, save, and then once I get to the end of the timesheet week, I'll go in and click submit. And at that point, it's going to kick off an approval processing or approval routing. And so as the end user, it brings me to this screen where I can see any of my past timesheets, look at the overall status. Here I can see whether it's open or pending approval, what's been approved or rejected. And I can always go back in and view those timesheets if necessary. And the nice thing is once I go in and view this as Abby, who's the end user and who can't make any changes now that it's been submitted, I can look at color coding right on here and see what's been approved or what's pending approval. If something's been rejected, that's going to show up in red. So again, we have visuals to help those end users identify what they need to go in and fix or make changes to in the system. Okay. Just continuing with this theme very quickly, I've entered in the timesheet. I'm now going to go in and enter in some expenses. So I'll click on my expenses area. That brings me into the expense report. I'll go in and put in a purpose for this. So we'll say we're going to be on-site with the client. Notice we have the ability to put in multi-currency. So if you are traveling internationally, you can put in the currency that you incurred the expense in. But at this point, I'm just filling in the details. So within here, I can go in and again pick that same project. I'll select it from the list here. We'll pick our category. We'll say we had some airfare for $300. I can put in a memo if necessary. I can also attach a file right at the line item. So again, if you were scanning in your receipt image and you wanted to attach it here, you can do so. I'll go in and add another line item for that same project. Again, we can copy those over as well if necessary. We'll say we had a business meal for $50, and again, I could attach the receipt. Now, if you don't want to attach at the line item level, and oftentimes firms may not require that, you just need to attach it to the overall expense report, certainly can do that as well. So right on the Communication tab, there's a Files area here. So if you scanned in all of your receipts, attach them as one document or perhaps multiple documents, I can attach them right here as well. Again, I can save this or complete it later, or if I filled out everything that I plan to, I'll click Submit, and that's going to route the expense report through the approval process. So let's talk more about that. I'm going to navigate over into our project manager, who's been one of our primary users for today's presentation, and I have Mark, who's set up to approve Abby's time and expenses. So from here, I'm going to go over and look at my reminders, and I have 2 timesheets that are awaiting approval. So when I drill into that, I can see here are the timesheets. I can approve right from this screen, or if I wanted to look at the details, I just click into it, and it's going to show me the individual time transactions that Abby had just put on her timesheet. I'll click Mark All and approve, but you do have the ability to reject individual line items as well. And again, that's where those statuses and color coding will come into play. If I were to reject an item, Abby would see that on her timesheet as a rejected amount. Very similar process on the expense side. So as I go through here, I'm going to go in and enter in or view my expense reports. And again, I have a couple of expense reports that we're waiting approval on. Here's the one for Abby, and again, I can click into it, view those details as we see fit here, and if everything looks okay, I might be reviewing the receipt attachments. I'm going to go in and click Approve. Now, the one thing just to point out here, that expense report didn't go away. You'll notice there's a status ready for accounting approval. And this just shows that we have the ability to support multi-tiered approval processes where I might have the supervisor approve the time, or in this case the expense report first, and then I'm going to have the person from finance go in and do the secondary approval. Okay. So let's finish that process up. I'm going to go over now and switch gears and log in as more of my controller. So from here, as a controller, I'm going to look over at my reminders, my list that I have here. And again, I have expense reports that are awaiting my approval. There's the one for Abby for the $350. And right from here, I'm just going to go in and say, let's approve that and finalize that. So we've now gone in and approved both the timesheets as well as the expense reports, and we're going to start looking at what's going to be potentially eligible to start running through billing and invoicing the end client. So as the controller or finance person, I may go in and pull up my project that we've been working on, and I want to go and view the overall project billing setup. So from here, I'm going to navigate over into our financial tab. And again, this is something where we've talked a lot about having people from multiple departments across the company accessing the data. This is where, again, security can certainly come into play, where I may be the only person that has access to certain pieces of information, or maybe other people can view it, but they can't go in and make changes and that sort of thing. So if we recall, we have what we refer to as a charge-based billing type on this particular project. And so as a controller, I may have a process of going in and creating what we refer to as billing rules. And the power here is that it supports the ability to create mixed billing use cases on a given project. So you'll notice down on the bottom I have a series of fixed fee rules that I can add, a fixed date, base it off of a milestone or even the progress of the project. And so I could set up a rule that says when we hit this milestone, bill $5,000. In addition to that, I have a series of time-based rules where I can go in and build out when time should be getting or how time should be getting invoiced on this particular project. And again, those can coincide with each other so that you're able to have different structures from a billing standpoint all on one project. So if I were to click on this bill by service billing rule that we have on this project here, I can see we have the ability to specify the rate basis, whether it's going to be by the service that we're providing or by the resource or by their billing class. Project manager bills at this rate or a consultant bills at this rate. Also having the ability to add things like multipliers on top of that or rounding. Caps is another one, so being able to specify not to exceed type amounts. So perhaps we can bill out $40,000 worth of time, but once we reach that cap, we don't want to bill it out anymore. We still want people charging time against the project because we want that cost to hit it, but we're just not going to be going in and invoicing for it. Okay. So that's some of the concepts here with those individual rules. And then this is something that once you have the rules set up, the system's going to be going in and generating those charges typically on a daily basis, but you can always go in and fire it and create those charges as needed. So you'll notice here I just generated those, and I have a little update that says I have $8,320 of pending billing charges. And if I were to click on that, it's going to bring me over into this Manage Pending Charges screen. You may recognize this from the opening flow earlier, where I can now go in and manage those charges on this particular project. And so the nice thing here is that you have the ability to put items on hold. So perhaps I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to build this out yet. I just want to hold it for the time being, and so that way when we go to create invoices, it's not going to be accidentally put on something, but it's still eligible down the road to perhaps be invoiced. So having those types of mechanisms to go in and alter or manipulate those details is certainly helpful. Okay. So within here, what I'm going to do now is pull up the sales order. And there's multiple ways to go in and start initiating the billing within the system. I can go in and create an invoice. I'll have reminders of things that need to be to create. I can process multiple sales orders at once within the tool. But really, what I wanted to show is the ability to go in and right off of the sales order, if necessary, is click on Next Bill. And the reason I wanted to point this out is you'll notice that it's going to bill for those products, the server and the database server software that we were reselling to our customer. But in addition to that, it's also including the labor. And so those billing charges that we just created are also being included on here. So now we're able to invoice for everything in one spot. I also can toggle over my expenses tab and see, okay, do we want to invoice for those billable expenses, the business meal, the airfare, that sort of thing. And so, assuming we want to go in and generate this invoice, I can go in and click Save and Print, and that's going to initiate or create the invoice for me. So again, this is a screen where you have full flexibility to go in and start entering in or choosing what that invoice layout is going to look like. So again, adding a logo, changing terminology, being able to go in and remove or add columns as you see fit. Those are all things that you're able to process or make changes of within the actual invoice layout editor. Excellent. All right. So what I want to do now is just to kind of finish up as far as some of the overall reporting attributes or metrics that you'll have out of the system going forward. I'm going to log back over into my Professional Services Director. And let's just start talking about some of the reporting, and especially as they relate to a services organization more on the project side within here. So for instance, or for example, if I were to now go in and pick up or view the project that we had ongoing, this BI integration for Aperture, I can go in and click into it and view any of the details, so I can see any of the actual work that's happened to it. I can click on the project dashboard like we looked at earlier and see any sort of progress that we've made. So you'll notice right on the project dashboard, we're now at 20% complete. I can see the hours that have been worked, the incurred costs that we have on the project, what we've invoiced. I can see on my Gantt chart what we've actually accomplished so far. So you'll notice it's getting shaded in as work is accomplished, and I can see the individual project progress as I hover over that. You're seeing a little P&L area here. So again, looking at labor and expenses and supplier costs within here. And you'll notice we have a nice margin on the supplier, and that's because we've invoiced for it, but we actually haven't perhaps even received the invoice internally. And so we have the means and mechanisms of doing that within the tool as well. If I were to jump back over to my home screen, just looking at some more high-level project profitability reports across the overall organization. I'm going to use my shortcuts to do so. But again, looking at things like project profitability, and in this case I'm looking at it for the month. And now we're not just looking at it on that individual project, I'm looking at it across all of our projects. And it's all date driven, so I can change the dates on here. But as I scroll through, you can see again, there's that Aperture Health project that we've been working on. And I can look at the labor, expenses, the supplier costs. If I wanted to drill into those values, I can do so. And so this brings me into a detail report where I can see the labor costs, which are coming over from journal entries based off of the time that's been entered into the system, as well as the invoice on the revenue side. And again, if I wanted to view that, I just click on it, and it brings me into that transaction. So again, quite easily you're able to drill right into those source transactions right off of our reports. Looking at things like our budget versus actual reporting. And again, we'll continue to kind of pick on our Aperture Health project here, the BI integration. But now you're seeing a column for budget. So we have our overall labor budget for the month, our expense budget, our supplier budget, and then the actuals. And again, the ability to drill down into those details and see our overall budget value. This is what the budget was for June on the project versus what we've actually costed so far to that BI integration project. Okay. Looking at things like utilization, and I'm going to go in and we'll run our historical utilization here. And in this case, I'm looking at it for the quarter, and I want to summarize this here. And so you can see we're able, at the resource level, we're able to start looking at time worked versus what was available, and then dictating utilization, and then looking at that across the overall teams, expanding it out to see what projects people have worked on within there. So again, having those types of details available from a utilization standpoint is certainly helpful and critical to understanding how successful our services component or services billing is within the company. All right. So with that, what I wanted to do was just kind of recap a little bit as far as what we covered today, and again, with the focus being on the services resource planning capabilities within the tool. But again, talked about the consolidated system, so having our CRM, our professional services automation, our financials, all in a single application where we're able to seamlessly move from a lead on the sales side to creating an opportunity to then using the professional services capabilities to scope out work, build out projects, use that to quote out and sell to a client, the ongoing management of a project, the resource allocation capabilities and skill tracking, availability, and then from the end user consultant standpoint, tracking time and expenses, seeing what tasks they need to work on, having that role that really kind of gives them the critical pieces that they have, and then kind of circling back and looking at how that impacts financials, as we create invoices, as we enter in time and other expenses, and not just only financials, but as it affects overall project profitability, budget versus actual, having all those sets of reports all at our fingertips. And again, looking at project profitability and drilling into the transactions that supported that within the financials module. So with that, I think what we want to do now is kind of bring Paul back on as well, and we're going to, I saw a bunch of questions coming in, so let me navigate back over to our slides here, and we're going to start fielding some of the Q&A that came in.
Great. Thank you, Adam. So before we begin going through some of the great questions that came in during this session, I just wanted to let everyone know that we will be sending out a link to this recording next week to everyone registered for the call. So if you joined late or had to leave early or just want to hear it all again, you'll be receiving that link next week. All right? All right, Adam, so a ton of questions came through. Maybe you and I can kind of jointly tackle some of these. A lot of stuff on timesheets. So why don't we start there? This question for you, Adam, is can you talk a little bit about the flexibility of the timesheet and expense report approval process?
Yeah, so absolutely. It's all powered using our workflow engine. So much like if you were to set up a purchase order approval process, that sort of thing. So it's all very configurable. I mentioned briefly that you can support multi-tiered approval processes, and you saw that on the expense side as well. So it's a mechanism of defining who will be the approvers, to what level you want to have it, and then as part of that, you can also route notifications so that people are notified when a approval is needed or when my time is rejected. Those are all types of things that are supported with the workflow.
Great. And a very common occurrence, a particular consultant might be working on several projects over the course of a time period. Those projects might have different project managers. When that user submits the time, what happens to the entries?
Yeah, so again, through the workflow that we build for the approval, if you wanted it to notify the appropriate project manager, that's something that we would be accommodating through the workflow approval engine.
Great. And another common, hopefully not too common occurrence, but if an error is found in a time entry after the timesheet is submitted, what are the options available to an organization?
Yeah, so if you reject it, that's going to make it available again for the person to go in and make that change. There's also, depending on your access rights, they can be deleted to start over again, or corrections can be made. So anywhere prior to that approval, you can go in and make those types of edits. Once it gets to a spot where we've billed it, or perhaps even costed that time to a project, there's going to be some additional steps, but certainly you can work through those as well.
Okay, great. And I think one more on kind of in the timesheet realm. So here's a question about identifying particular time entries or expense items as billable or not. Can a user do that when they submit the timesheet, or do we rely on the billing rules to do that? What are the options available to an organization?
Yeah, actually all of the above. So we can expose a checkbox to make it billable or not and have the end user dictate that. We also have tasks that can be set up as non-billable, so it would default to that. And then you're also able to use your billing rules. So I mentioned or showed that charge-based rule. One thing I probably didn't focus much attention on is the filtering. And so you can filter that rule and say if it's a certain category or a certain type or something like that, don't run it through the charge. So multiple ways to accommodate that.
Okay, great. And here's a question about budgeting. So the question is, can you create budgets for projects, and can you also create budgets for the underlying tasks on those projects?
Yes. So, and again, we support a bottoms-up approach where you can enter on the task the budget value for both cost and billing, and it's broken out by category, labor, expense, and then third-party supplier. At the highest level, you can go more detailed. So if you enter at the task level, that can roll up to the overall project. Or if you don't have a structure where you're budgeting at that much detail, you can budget directly on the project. You also can do a combination of both. So I might do labor budgeting at the task level, but I'm going to do expense budgeting at the overall project level.
Okay, great. Thank you. Here's a question that I'll take. It's a question about how do NetSuite's capabilities compare to that of Salesforce.com. So I can answer that at sort of a high level, but I would think of Salesforce as really a very robust customer relationship management tool. That's where they've started. That's where they've remained the strongest, and certainly built out some ancillary capabilities to that. But I would really think of them as sort of a best-of-breed tool in sort of the CRM space. And I'd say NetSuite is really at its best when it's being used as kind of an end-to-end business management system. So covering not only kind of areas of functionality typically classified as CRM, but also professional services automation, some of the stuff around project and resource management that we discussed today, and then financials on the back end, and all of those kind of cross-functional business processes that span an organization. That said, we certainly have a lot of our NetSuite customers, occasionally using Salesforce on the front end, and NetSuite has a very strong set of integration capabilities to integrate with Salesforce or some of the other solutions that might be out there and in place within an organization. Great. So let's see what else we have here. We have a couple questions about skills. The first one being, how have you typically seen organizations keep updated the skills of the users within the system?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's always the $1,000,000 question because really it's something that you potentially have to stay on top of. The nice thing is that you can give access to your end users to help maintain it. So I see a variety. Some it's going to be more the manager that's updating those types of skills directly on the employee record, but we do have others where they'll open it up, and so I would be able to go in and add my own skills to my record, save it, and kind of keep up to date with it. You can also set up notifications. Again, I mean, this is more just standard NetSuite functionality, but we can set up notifications through workflow that maybe periodically remind people that they need to go in and update their skills, and maybe they have to say that they completed it, that sort of thing. So those are some tips there.
Great, and talk a little bit about the flexibility of skills. Are the sorts of skills, or the classification of skills, or the units that companies use to measure skills by, are all those flexible within the system?
100%. So you saw a small subset of what we can do within the tool, but you have the ability to create multiple, what we refer to as skill profiles, and then all the attributes that might be in a profile, and then you can even further define it. So you saw things like not only does that person know JavaScript, but they need to be an expert in JavaScript. So being able to add those types of attributes as well.
Great. And the last one I'll throw at you here, we saw a lot of great dashboards and reports today. How personalizable are those, and are they subject to the role-based security that we saw elsewhere in the application?
Yes, so they're highly configurable. I'll use that word instead. But so you can go in, and so that's going to be per user, and it's going to be specific on screens as well. So you saw the home dashboard when I first logged in, and that's going to be configurable for each and every person. But even the project dashboard, which I showed, and there's a client version of that as well, that's specific to the person. So as far as what they're going to see on there. So again, very configurable, and then the security role is going to factor in on that. So if I don't have access to the income statement, then I'm not going to be able to report necessarily on metrics that are on there. So there's that element of it. So that's going to potentially control what someone could add. But again, all configurable and something that you kind of work out through the implementation of the product.
Okay, great. And there's another question about mobile, asking us to talk a little bit about our support for mobile devices, and I can take that one. So we do have purpose-built apps for the iPhone. In addition, there's a question about tablets, and I think what you'll find is our user interface renders incredibly well on iPads, and a lot of our executives using NetSuite, that's primarily how they run their business. The adaptive design built into the application allows it to perform extremely well, whether you're looking at it on a PC, a desktop, an Apple device, or any of the tablets that are out there. Anything to add to that, Adam?
No, I think you covered it. The iPhone app, again, the ability to take pictures of receipts and attach it right onto the expense report, as well as fill out your timesheet. Certainly nice ways to do it.
Okay, great. We do have a number of other questions that unfortunately we're not going to have an opportunity to kind of verbally address today. It'd be our pleasure, though, to follow up with those asking the questions kind of offline to make sure their needs get answered. I do want to thank everyone for joining us today. The vision of NetSuite has always been to make businesses run better by providing really a single suite over the cloud that helps them kind of automate, from end to end all the processes that they're engaging in. And whenever I see Adam or any of our members of our team kind of demonstrate the solution, I'm always struck by kind of the power of that vision. And you're seeing things like pipeline information, revenue, customer cases, utilization, receivables, billable hours, kind of all in one place, all accessible to use of the system, I think is just extremely compelling, and I hope you all thought so too. So thanks so much for spending 90 minutes of your very scarce time with us. I hope this session was useful to you, and we would welcome your feedback. We look forward to hopefully engaging with you subsequent to this. So thanks everyone for joining us. Have a great day.